Hey, look, I just wanted to jump on and quickly say before the podcast starts today, it's a cracking episode. By the way, we've got Connor Southwell of the EDP and the Pink, and he goes in depth about the break in trust between the football club and the local media. Talks in length about some of the big stories that they've broken over the last couple of years and also the current state of affairs at the football club. That's not why I wanted to talk to you directly, though. We've got a really exciting offer on at the moment. We talked last week about our proud podcast partners Lakens and Nor partnering. Well, it's official. They've launched a really exciting product, a mixed case of Lakens with 3 of Nor's best-selling chocolate bars picked by you and us in one brilliant box. It is not going to last for long. They've got a limited stock, and I wanted to tell you before the rest of our community get hold of it. So, limited stock, it is a bargain price, and you get 20% off as well with the code TNCBeer. It's a brilliant gift for Christmas, or just gift yourself. I'm going to link it down in the description. 12 bottles of Laken, 3 of Nor's best-selling bars for a brilliant price. Check it out. Hello and a warm welcome back to the TNC podcast, your go-to Norwich City podcast alongside the Scrimmage and the Pink and podcast. And we should probably throw Michael Bailey's podcast in there as well. We are once again joined by a guest. I like to call the man to my left the Fabrizio Romano of Norwich City.
Oh, thanks, Jack.
It's Connor Southwell. How's it going, my friend?
Hello,
you
mate.
good?
I'm good. How are
Hello,
you?
mate.
Good to be back.
Do you think Fabrizio are sort of posters of you up in his bedroom or something? Or is it the other way?
He does follow me on Twitter.
Does
actually,
he?
very
Oh, I
bizarrely.
thought I was
Yeah.
special.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know if I followed him at the time, actually, but I do now.
That's
but,
even better.
but
He's followed you without following back.
He's immensely talented. So.
And now I want to bring something up
You
straight
can't
away.
do any name drops. We are
No,
literally 10 seconds in.
no, I'm not. I want to bring something up, right? And Connor will love this. Last time Connor was on the pod,
Yeah.
you were spouting absolute nonsense about Timmy Krul, weren't you, Jack?
Look, it's a long-term vision, and where is Tim Krul now? He's on the bench.
You were having an argument with Connor because
Yeah.
Connor was defending Timmy Krul, knowing that he was going to become a club legend, and you said that you'd rather Remy Matthews. Do you regret those comments?
No, not at all. I think the last time Connor was on, he wasn't.
Welcome back, mate.
Connor wasn't even on the EDP desk, and now you're chief reporter.
Yeah.
It's been a stark rise.
Yeah, it's been mad. It's been a bit unexpected.
How long have you been there now? A few years?
3 years.
3 is it?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I think that's the nature of what the last 2 years have done. It feels like everything's been in a much shorter period than it has been, right? But yeah, it's been fun. I'm enjoying it.
Good.
How mad though, Connor? Like, seriously, well done, honestly.
Thank you.
Like, I even just remember the days of you doing articles for our TNC website, which we've left to rot now, and you know, obviously my football writer as well. And where you are now is phenomenal. So well done, seriously, well done.
Thank you guys.
Good.
That's enough compliments.
I'm sure
We're going
it's.
to batter you now.
Go red here.
You've been there for 3 years. I suspect the last year has probably been the most tumultuous of those years. There's been relegations. You covered a promotion in that. You would have done as well.
Yes, yeah.
And now, I guess the last 6 months has been fascinating from a club media relationship point of view. We had Rob Butler on here last week from Radio Norfolk, who of course sung your praises as well as your colleagues, and I'm sure all of our viewers as well. Where are we at with the EDP, the Pinkens reporting with Norwich City? Because from what fans can see and from what we've heard, there's maybe been a slight fractious relationship over the last couple of months.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's well documented. I don't think I'm saying anything particularly revelatory by saying that's the case. Obviously, you know, we can still go to matches, we can still report on press conferences. So in that regard, hopefully people haven't seen too much of a change in terms of coverage. And I think actually when we've spoken about this, sometimes the perception has been that we're moaning or we're whinging about stuff. And I think actually what we're trying to do is just gently suggest there should be some accountability somewhere, there should be some external scrutiny somewhere. And the kind of thing that I've always said is you look in all walks of life, politics, business, if you are in a public-facing, community-facing business or a football club, which is obviously unique within that, there should be someone asking why or what's the thinking behind this or why are you doing this. And I think actually that's really healthy and it benefits both sides. And obviously when you don't have that, I think, you know, we end up kind of where we are at the moment, with people maybe feeling a little bit confused and feeling a little bit disconnected, if you want to use that particular buzzword. So that's kind of where we are with it personally, and like, we're fine. I don't want people to think that we're whinging or moaning about it. But it's been interesting.
I've heard Connor on a few podcasts now talking about this, and even this one just now. And I've noticed one thing, Connor, with each one, when you have to talk about it, you have a large intake of breath. You're like, oh, here we go again.
Well, that's kind of every day, to be honest. just that general intake.
Welcome to my life.
Yeah. But no, I think it's. I just find the whole thing quite sad, to be honest, because we spoke about this in our not most recent Pink and Pod, but the one before that.
It's punchy, by the way.
It was.
Paddy's punch, we've nicknamed
Yeah,
it.
it was. It was unexpected as well, by the way. But it's probably for him to answer than me. But it's a shame because the fans lose, right? It's the fans that are the losers. It's not us ultimately. As I said, we're fine. We'll keep on motoring unless we're kind of told otherwise. But it's the fans who miss the messaging, who miss the interviews with players and learn about the stories behind how they've got to Norwich City or what their career has been, behind understanding, as I said, some of the decisions and some of the whys and why nots in cases. So for me, that's kind of the angle that I take from it, because we are there to serve the supporters, and I think when you're not allowed to do that, it becomes incredibly frustrating from my perspective, because it almost feels like I'm selling people a bit short.
So when a club official comes out and says there's been a break in trust,
yes,
and I've seen a lot of discussion about this on social media, obviously as expected, right? Because it's not clear, the waters are muddy right now, and there's people debating like what was the break in trust, and can you lift the lid on that, Connor? Can you divulge into like what you think it is? And
I can tell you what it is. We asked exactly the same question of the club and got the reply that it was involving our breaking of the Mark Atanasio investment story,
which was a really good bit of journalism, I must say.
Thank you, and I think it's difficult, and I've seen lots of.
Not the Weber headline, Connor?
No. I've seen lots of comments and maybe conspiracies as to A, how we got that story, and B, how the whole process was handled. I don't think I've seen one that's right yet, which is interesting. There's maybe little bits here and there, but not the whole picture.
What is the truth?
The truth is we had the story, we ran the story, we were asked not to run the story.
So you've firmed up the story. You've come to the understanding of who the Ataniazos are and what their intention are, and you've gone to the club and said, we are running this story, would you like to comment? Is that kind of the journey of events?
That's the standard procedure. Yeah. And
what have they said?
Well, I think it was heavily implied that they wouldn't want us to run that story. It's obviously not in our it's of course up to us to run the story or not, but we took a decision actually that this was in Norwich City fans' interest to know about. I think maybe, obviously they would argue that it was at quite a delicate stage of where the deal was at. I completely understand that, but at the same token, it's not for our job to suppress a story or to sit on a story. And I think ultimately, if we didn't break that story, someone else would have broke it at some point. And this idea of maybe there being a right time, when would that have been for anybody? I think you look at it and it probably would have been after it was done, right? Yeah. And so again, seen ideas that we were offered certain stuff. That's not the case either.
So to clarify, it definitely wasn't the Stuart Webber front page.
No, not.
Which was what for those that maybe don't know?
Yeah, well, it was an evening news, and again, there's been some revisionism around this slightly. So before the Newcastle game last season, home game, May I think it was, Stuart Webber did an interview with Henry Winter in the Times. There were some quotes in that some people were quite upset about. We actually did a podcast on the day after that game, speaking about those quotes and trying to put them in context and trying to not defend him, but almost trying to sort of, well, again, put them in context, because some of them had been taken out of context, and I can see why they were, but also we tried to put them back in and explain the situations for why they were. Obviously Norwich got beat that day. There was the whole sort of stuff that came out after the game with him and fans, and there were people protesting, some people with a banner or a bed sheet, depending on how you want to do it. So it got to the Tuesday, and there was a front page that asked the question, essentially, which I think was, do you even want this job, Mr. Weber? Something along those lines. And I know a lot of people have questioned why that was the way it was, and again, I can kind of see why and where not, but you dig into it, and ultimately it's a question asked, whether you agree with the question or whether you don't, and people are entitled to, and I'm not saying kind of which way people should go on that, but it's a question being asked of somebody ultimately, and that was kind of the front page really, and from there I would say that's probably the start of what's been a fairly...
Did he ever answer the question? Does he want the job?
No, and again, just to be clear, standard procedure of that, we went and put some questions to the football club. I think there maybe was again, it wasn't involved in the actual process of it, so it's probably not for me to comment, but we did put questions to the football club in advance. They decided not to answer them, and therefore, so that's kind of that. Really.
Fine.
Do you think, do you know, when I listened to all this, kind of like when I was listening to Rob talk about it, when I listened to you talk about it, when I listened to the Paddy's Punch pod, as I'm calling it now.
He needs to trademark that quickly.
Yeah, he does, Paddy's Punch. God, that would be like a really good, what's his favourite drink, like whiskey or something? I reckon he's a whiskey.
I don't know, actually. He doesn't...
Paddy's Punch. It can't be something fruity. It's got something
like
lively.
A little cocktail.
I think I've only ever seen him drink beer or lager.
Okay, fine.
But I'm not
maybe
connoisseur.
Tropical IPA, maybe.
Okay, fine. Yeah. But then when I listen to it, and I try to get myself in the club shoes, because I'm thinking, like, do you think they have the right to be insulted by that headline, given that, I don't know, like, sometimes I feel a bit aggrieved when, like, someone has done something so well, and then they've done one thing and it's like I don't know, maybe it could be interpreted as a slap. So I think you're right. It was a question, but I'm trying to get into the club shoes as well.
I understand it, and I understand why it will have upset people. And I think you've got to remember the context of this time where they were taking a lot of criticism elsewhere. And I think naturally, as a human being, if you take criticism, you shut the door and you don't let it in, right? So I can understand it also came after a pretty tough weekend. So, you know, in many ways, it could have been the one that kind of got the
petrol.
anger. Potentially, yeah. Again, it's difficult to kind of comment without being the person involved. But yeah, I completely understand. I completely understand people's issues with it as well.
Look, I think the solution to all of this, whether it's atmosphere, media relations, if Norwich City start winning football matches, all of these things kind of get resolved quite quickly. And within the last week, we have seen Norwich City win a football match. I want to start though with the draw against QPR.
Oh.
We were there.
We
didn't go to Rotherham. Connor did. We're not as committed. No, but actually, I think there were positives in that performance, Connor, and I think we saw some of those positives reinforced on Saturday against Rotherham. It feels weird though, doesn't it? We're obviously within the fans. You're basically in the fans where you guys sit up in the press box. It feels as if Norwich fans are ready to turn at any point. Do you think whatever Dean Smith does at the moment, or whatever the players do, I guess, will resolve that, or do you think it's the beginning of the end for Mr. Smith?
I think this season's been tough for a reason that I kind of put down to a lack of narrative, if that makes sense. You look at the first time they went up in the Championship, it was unexpected, there was a fairy tale, every win felt enormous. Two years ago under Daniel Farke was obviously unique in many ways, but there was kind of this, well, we're going to do it right this time, and there was this kind of mission to prove people wrong. And I'm not really sure what the narrative is this time. It's difficult, and when the expectation is that you just win games and that you get promoted, I think it's natural that a lot of the focus then becomes on how you do that, because that's kind of your middle line, isn't it? Your baseline that you have to hit. Anything beneath that people will view as a failure, rightly or wrongly. I think probably wrongly, and anything above that is probably a success. But when winning is expected to be the norm, it becomes about how you win and in what way you win, and that's kind of where I think this kind of relationship is, because Dean Smith can win whatever it was 6-7 games in a row, and yet people can still say, well, the style of play isn't very good and the process isn't very good, because just getting promoted is kind of the norm for this Norwich City group. It's the benchmark. You have to do that in a certain way.
I know you wrote that piece on the back of the 5 Live show the Monday when Dean Smith was interviewed, and that kind of identity around the football club. And like, I get it, but equally I'm always caught of like, do football fans have the right to kind of demand that? Are we slightly entitled in the fact, well, winning's now not enough and we need something else, we need a narrative? Like, where are you at with that? Or do you think Dean Smith's been maybe slightly unfairly treated this season?
Yes, I think it's a tough job, and it's also tough when you come in after someone like Daniel Farke and the impact that he had and the stage presence he had and the way that he could command the room, and also he's just a completely different person. I think Daniel Farke was very outward and very open about what he wanted to do. Right, this is the style of play that we're going to deploy. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is why this happened. Here's who's injured. Here's how long they're out for.
I mean, the press conferences were balmy, weren't they? But they were very long.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, it was almost like a lecture in football.
A riddle.
Yeah. Whereas Dean is a lot more consistent and to the point. And that's not saying one's right and one's wrong. They're just very different. And the way I've kind of categorised it, if that's right, is you've got one who's an ideologist and one who's probably a problem solver, so to speak. And at this level, because of what I've just said, you almost want the ideologist. You want them to play in a certain way, to look in a certain way. And then when they get promoted, you almost want the other bit, someone who can problem solve and adapt. And it feels like they've probably got, well, before they had the ideologist at this level who would then get up to the Premier League and really struggle because he didn't want to adapt and he didn't want to change his ways. You've probably got the problem solver this time who doesn't have a definitive style, is more adaptable to opponents, is more willing to mix it up. But actually, if Norwich City were to get promoted, that's probably a better blueprint than the one that Daniel Farke had. So they're in a difficult position, I think, between the style of coach that they've got. And also, this kind of links back to communication, because if you communicate that and you speak about that being a plan, I think you bring people with you. And it's almost been left to kind of Dean to explain that, and it's not for him to explain, I don't think.
You said, I'll throw you under the bus a little bit kind of politely, not too much, don't worry. Before we pressed the on button, you said, I actually feel a bit sorry for Dean Smith.
Yeah.
And that, I have to be honest, that's how I feel too, because yes, it's a well-paid job, but it's like, I feel like he's the easy target, and I do think the problems run deeper at Norwich City Football Club. It's not all... I said this in front of Rob, I'll say it again. I don't think it's the silver bullet solution. If you get rid of Dean Smith, we start blowing teams away again. I just don't think we are, especially with this current team. So I don't know, I just feel like it's cheap and it's just lazy to just say, oh yeah, Dino's the problem, get him out. I just can't see it changing with anyone you bring in. Like with this current club setup, and the fan feeling that we said in the media preview was already fragile. Do you remember when I said that we needed to win 5 games in a row at the start of the season? You were laughed at me.
Yeah.
And they're still
stand by it. I don't know, I feel sorry for him as well. I think that wasn't a question.
I think it was interesting what you said there about it's not necessarily Dean Smith's job to communicate that message, because it felt like at the start of Daniel Farke's reign, it was as much Daniel Farke as it was Stuart Webber. Stuart it seemed like he was always in the media, whether it was club channels, whether it was through you, Radio Norfolk, saying this is what we're doing, this is who we're signing, this is the scouting we were doing, blah, blah, blah. We don't hear from Stuart now.
No, and I'm sure he would have his reasons for that. And also it's worth saying that, again, not to maybe lean on a different narrative, but sporting directors don't speak. That's kind of the norm. So I think he's kind of broken that a little bit with what he's done. So this isn't like something that's really abnormal in football. It's usually kind of left to the head coach to speak and managers to speak. But the problem is when you kind of set that as, again, you set that as the benchmark, that becomes the expectation. People expect to be spoken to if you start speaking to them. And then if the same person then pivots away from that for whatever reason, and they may well be justified, then it does create, I think, people look at it and go, well, hang on, you were talking to us 2 years ago and we understood what we were doing, and now we don't, and it becomes an easy thing to point at. So again, I don't necessarily want to blame Stuart Webber for that, because again, I'm sure there are valid reasons as to why he feels that's not the case. But I can also understand why fans want him to speak more as well, because that was what they kind of expected, and kind of what he sold to them as well when he first came in, and did it extraordinarily well during the start of his reign. We'll
get onto the Rotherham win in a moment. Let's speak briefly about QPR first.
Yeah.
It felt as if the performance was maybe best. We probably should have won it, Chris, but I felt a sense from you, your sort of screaming from behind me that you weren't quite happy still with what you saw that night.
I can just still see the latent potential in this team, and I still think that they're not fulfilling it, and I know that they feel that too. You talk about, Dean Smith being a problem solver. That's what I'm told they're doing. They're looking at scenarios, they're solving problems. The players are doing that as well. And I just think, and to just quickly flick on to Rotherham, I felt that we functioned better. We looked like the machine was there. Whereas before, I felt like a cog was turning over here, but it was cranky and unoiled over here. Here we go, my dodgy analogies again, Connor. And I felt like against Rotherham, the machine was there, and we could combat them, and we could win the game of football. And at QPR, we just weren't quite it was almost there, but not quite there. So yeah, I'm not going to be happy if we don't win games at home next season. You're never going to get happy, Chris Reeve, when we don't win at home, because we should be winning at home. And I honestly think it's a realistic expectation that we should be winning at home. Even I look at Watford away, for example, they're average. We should be beating them at Carrow Road. I'm not afraid of anyone at Carrow Road, and so to lose or draw at home for me is a shambles, which is why I said after Luton, I just don't think the consistency is there for us to get top two when you're losing games at home like that.
Well, I think that's the interesting thing, Connor, isn't it? Is even if Norwich are winning games, we were for a long stretch a couple of months ago, the argument is then, well, the league's weak, and I think that's probably justified because I'd say the only team I've been thoroughly impressed with that we've gone up against have been Burnley.
Yeah.
But even Burnley have shipped goals for fun in the last couple of weeks, so you probably can't. Yeah. There's no standout team this season, is there?
No, and that's probably epitomised. You think about the Championship, and everyone kind of says, "Oh, you need to average 2 points a game to get promoted." No team is doing that at the minute, which is an incredible statistic, really. Even Burnley kind of have their issues. They're closest to that benchmark at the moment. Norwich 2 years ago surpassed that, and we kind of looked a year ago. Teams had more points than they have this season. So it is, and I think that there's positives in that for Norwich City, in that it won't take much for them to go up the table because of how close it is. You need a run of games and suddenly you're up to fourth after a pretty poor run. But also, obviously, there's problems in the whole division for that, because if a team gets promoted out of that division when it is like that, what's then their future prospects like? So, I mean, I think ultimately this probably comes down to how full you view your glass to be.
How full's your glass?
And what are you drinking?
Lakens. Yeah, Lakens. Fuller after the last 3 games, because
okay.
I think.
Are we calling this a run, by the way?
Yeah, I think we have to.
Okay.
I think we have to.
3 games unbeaten.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
I think we have to.
I think we got to.
Yeah,
But I think actually, as Chris kind of said, in the last 3 games, I think you can make an argument that they've taken a step forward in each performance, which has maybe been the criticism of them, particularly with Rotherham, which, and that's not to say performances have been perfect, because I don't think they have, but they've improved various elements. And to add some context to kind of the machine element of it, it's not really a surprise. Now they've got a left back, and they've got a proper defensive midfielder, and suddenly Kenny McLean's playing his natural position, and there's a few more options. So again, that's again to add to the sympathy with Dean Smith to an extent, and I get why the pressure's been there, and it's probably right to have been there, because Norwich City should not be going on the run of form that they've been on.
Nope.
But as you said, at no point did I think, right, just change the manager and that's an easy fix, because I think actually, and I'm sure they would have looked at it in the same way, there were a lot of players out and there was a lot of mitigation behind that run.
Do you think though, Connor, that I feel like we're done with the injury excuse now, right? Are we in agreement there? We're done with the injury excuse?
Yeah, I think
because we've got Hayden back, Dimmy's back in the fold now as well.
Yeah.
I think once again, if you
good. Sounds good.
If you lose Hayden again, you've once again got an interesting situation in midfield. He's kind of feels like our only defensive midfielder, doesn't he?
Yeah, I guess Liam Gibbs is the other one, but again,
Gibbs,
he's 19 years of age. It's a lot of pressure, and I think there have been points this season where people have kind of forgotten his age, and that he's not played at this level before, and there's been a lot of expectation placed on him. So I think that's needed managing as well. But you're right, and that is the dilemma that they have. But the fact they've got players back now, I don't think is a coincidence that the last 3 games, when they've had those players back and they've had a few weeks of fitness, they're beginning to look better as a team. I don't think that's a coincidence.
I was just going to say, Darren Eady does a Darren's debrief exclusively on the TNC socials, and one of the things that he said in his recent one after Rotherham was that now he wants to see a consistent starting lineup. That's where he feels that Norwich City will improve. Do you agree with that, Connor, or do you think? Because I kind of think, well, Dino does deserve more criticism if he now tweaks it and plays with it when we've got our best players back, right?
Possibly, but again, and this probably lends into the Championship being weaker argument. The schedule is ridiculous. Teams aren't being able to train. Norwich haven't been able to train really, so it's very difficult for a coach to say, right, well, X is wrong with my team, and on a Monday we're going to do this session to improve it. They just haven't had that time. They've been in the classroom a lot and kind of doing it via one of those kind of smart boards in analysis rooms rather than on the training pitch, and that's a very different type of coaching. So in many regards, it's probably not a surprise that you're seeing teams have faults in different areas, and that's quite consistent across the division. But it also means you have to change your team more, because when you have 3 games in a week, and the Championship's pretty mad anyway, but it's been even madder in this kind of opening block of games, you are going to have to use your squad a little bit, which I think is why Norwich are probably carrying a bit bigger of a squad than they have done in recent years.
Chris, something that gets criticised a lot in this country is the trains. But the Ramsey Railway is up and running. Another
Ramsey
goal.
Railway, mate. I told you last week I was aboard. Are you aboard the Ramsey Railway?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Ooh, ooh. Here we go.
Weren't you criticising the signing when he first
Yes, I
came in?
was.
Yeah.
And what did I say last week? I, just like many other Norwich fans, was proven wrong. What did you think when Ramsey joined? Did you think,
I think I actually asked Dean Smith a question about his inexperience, because the only loan that he had been at Cheltenham, and kind of when you do, in my role when Norwich sign a player, you try and find out how they've been, right? So, and the reports I got back weren't particularly positive.
Exactly.
So I think that natural scepticism is always there, and Marcus Edwards, we could throw in loads of other young players who have turned up and not done particularly great. I do think the fact this is his second loan is really beneficial. Norwich haven't taken him as the first one, where it's a bit of a culture shock and you've been in an environment for so long. I think that helps. The fact he obviously knows the coaching staff. Liam Bramley, I think, was his coach when he won the Youth Cup at Villa. So all of these things help with kind of how he beds in. But he's an intelligent footballer. If the play's moving in one direction, often he peels the other way to try and find space. It's very, very clever, and that means he kind of can drift out of games. But I don't think that should be taken as like a criticism, because what he's actually doing is trying to locate a really good space.
At the start, I felt it was maybe I'd say just passing, just giving the ball away too easy. And now I'm not seeing mistakes, but that's because I watch football in a funny old way. If we win, we don't make any mistakes. But I'm just so impressed with Ramsey yet again, building in confidence, bringing the ball forwards. And by the way, he wasn't the only one. Yeah, Maxi Aarons, who was absolutely superb against Rotherham, in my opinion. And considering what I would describe as a stop-start season for him, I felt that was particularly well. Rightly praised for doing what he does well, which he did exceptionally well under Daniel Farker, to be fair to him. So that was good. Gabriel Sara as well, by the way, which we need to sing the praises of. Mate, I'm feeling good about it, but I am well aboard the Ramsey Railway.
Good. Gabriel Sara, Connor's another one. We'll get onto Twitter questions in a moment. I think there's a lot of questions about Gabriel Sara, but he came with a price tag. There was pressure upon his shoulders. I think we didn't really see it in the first few months, and it felt as if Marcelino Núñez was far ahead of him in terms of development. It feels like we're starting to see the quality from Sara now.
I agree, and actually that Rotherham performance, I think, is the best that I've seen him, and it's almost a shame obviously the error for the goal, which probably showed everyone that there's still more to come in terms of adapting to the league. And you know, he's still young. You just get your head up, you look, you don't play a squares pass.
Poor defending even after
exactly.
Giving the ball away.
And to be fair, Kenny McLean made that point after the game that the pass is one thing, but they probably didn't defend it well enough either.
Agreed. But
I think what we'd seen from Sara before Saturday was spells in games where you thought, okay, I can see it, he's up to their level. And then there'd be phases of game. QPR's a really good example, actually. Started the first half an hour looking pretty bright, and then suddenly he was being pressed quicker than he was passing. And it's like, is he going to get that intensity and that pace of the league? And you know, if you're going to do it anywhere, Rotherham's not a bad place to do it, because that is intense.
Absolutely.
Don't you think that it feels a bit maybe Mario Vrancic in the sense of he just you know there's a player in there.
I think I said the same thing on our podcast. Actually,
did you
that
know?
exact same thing.
You're just
great
copying
minds.
people.
I've definitely copied
Great
him.
minds. Great minds.
Chris
definitely
does this a
got
lot.
on mute.
He hears people, forgets who
That's
said
great,
it,
yeah.
and then takes it as his own.
Gabriel Sara is the definition of a green banana. Okay, when he ripens.
Did you say green banana?
No,
Okay, I wouldn't have
When-
thought you.
We're on the right colour though.
Yeah,
to be fair,
absolutely.
so.
I don't know where this is going. I'm worried.
When Gabriel Sara ripens, my God, is it going to taste good?
Right.
It really, really is. Have you heard the new Sara song, by the way? Any interest?
Yeah, lots of interest.
Have you heard the new Sara song? Gabriel,
Sarah.
number 17.
I don't know the words to it.
Oh,
I like it. Sarah.
Best we've ever seen.
Sarah.
And we signed him from Brazil.
Do you like? Big fan of ABBA?
I was literally going to ask what the original song was.
Yeah,
ABBA. Voulez-vous?
Yeah. Little interest in ABBA, but a lot of interest in Gabriel Sara.
Should we get on to the Twitter questions?
Yes, let's do that.
Time for the Twitter questions, and as always, I haven't read through them, so there could be anything here, Connor, so brace yourself. Stan asks, is the World Cup coming in the middle of the season a blessing in disguise for Dean Smith? Surely he needs to start getting the best out of players who aren't going to Qatar if we're serious about winning promotion this season. Too many passengers in the squad. I guess it kind of links into your point, Connor, that he maybe hasn't had the time on the training ground. I think coaches always like to call it time on the grass, don't they? Is this a good I don't know what their schedule's like over the World Cup. Will they be having time off or are they in as usual?
They're going for some warm weather training. I don't know if it's out where they're going, so I better not say. But they're going for some they're going to some warm weather training, and then they'll come back to base and have a friendly. So I think it's a 3-week block they're looking at. They'll have a week off as well.
Okay.
But I mean, this is kind of unique. So the actual answer to that is we don't know. We don't know. The only kind of thing that I can think is like this, as in a pause in the season, is when everything shut down because of COVID and we were all in shutdown, and actually he utilised that period really well with the Aston Villa team, and obviously the circumstances are different because a lot of that was Zoom based and they weren't allowed to train and stuff like that, so it's slightly different in that regard, but it is a previous sort of block of time where he has had time to work with the squad and improve them. They obviously went on to stay up. There was a bit of luck with that with Oyen Nyland's VAR.
Just a bit.
Hawkeye, that's the one.
Hawk something, that was it.
Hawk something, yeah, it's definitely a bird.
Yeah.
And they stayed up, so hopefully he can repeat that, and obviously the circumstances.
Have we got anyone going to the World Cup? Is Sargent going?
I think the squad's out later this week.
He'll be in there.
I think he'll go. Yeah.
So would he be the only one?
Yes.
Super Sarge.
Doesn't have a Panini sticker. Sargent.
Dino
Brown
has
did that.
said in his press conference, I think, if I'm listening to what you're transcribing in the right way, Connor, is that he keeps mentioning we need to get through to the World Cup. Yeah. I think he said that 2 or 3 times now. Yeah. Let's get through to the World. Let's get to the World. Let's get to the World Cup. So I feel like that is a bit of a line in the sand
where he can just go.
Yeah, well, yeah. Maybe he can just, I don't know, put his feet up and have a sunbed.
Absolutely. Andy asks question. Do you think that playing Pookie is actually preventing Dean Smith from playing a team in a formation that would have more success? Andy says, I love Timu, but he isn't having the impact that he used to as we're unable to provide him with the type of balls he needs. Let's go to our man who knows far more about football than we do.
I find it very difficult to criticise Timu Pookie, to be honest. And I think at this level, if he's fit, you play him, right? I guess the argument is around, do you play him with Josh Sargent? Yeah. And I think Saturday was probably evidence as to why that should happen and why Sargent probably does need to be in a central role. So that probably does lend itself to a front two. And actually, I think the two of them, and the World Cup's going to be a really, well, maybe not because Sargent's not going to be there, but it would have been a really good opportunity for them to work on it because there are points where they play too far apart and stuff. But as a partnership, I think there's some real promise there. You've obviously got Adam Eder coming back as well. So I think a front two is the way to go. I think there's probably a bit of debate of what that looks like behind them. The point I would make is I don't think it's beneficial for the team, and this isn't a criticism of Sargent because he's been brilliant this year, but when he does play on the right, I think it does stifle Norwich City's attacking work to an extent. So I think it's probably better for the team, it's better for Pookie, it's better for Sargent if that's the front two, it would be my argument. But I don't see a situation where not playing Timu Pookie is beneficial for Norwich, to be honest.
You've been slightly critical of Timu at times this season.
You don't say that in front of someone that's intelligent. As always, I'm so respectful of everything he's done for a football club. cannot ever be written off. Not writing him off. I just think, just like Tim Krul, I just don't think he is a player that we can say, oh, you can't criticise him because he's Teemu Pukki. This season, he hasn't been on it. He hasn't, which is still impressive considering how many goals he scored. But I just kick myself.
But are you comparing him to previous campaigns?
No,
with an Emi Buendia
I
behind
think
him?
no.
Some of it's structural though as well, right?
Yeah.
I don't think the team's been configured to how he wants to play.
I agree with that, and I'm not we've definitely not played a style to complement Teemu Pukki, but I also think that Teemu Pukki has not been at it. You can see it in his body language. You can see it in the way that he moves about the pitch. It's been stop-start. In my opinion, there's been 2 games where I've gone, Teemu's back, baby, and then there's been 2 where I've gone, I honestly would drop him and I'd have Josh there instead. That's just my honest opinion. I love him. I respect him. He's a legend. One of my favourite players of all time. But I just feel like this season we've played him for the sake of squeezing him in when we've not played a system. If you're not going to play a system that benefits him, don't play him.
I think the interesting thing is with Teemu is, I agree, I don't think the system does suit him hugely, but even the goals at the weekend, I think, they kind of all come from Teemu. And a lot of the chances have come from a Teemu shot. The opening goal against Stoke comes from a moment where he stings a defender, shoots, and it falls to Ramsey. I'd say, to the point, I'd agree, where we played Millwall and Huddersfield that week, where it was games at Carrow Road pretty much every evening, where he was injured, wasn't he? And we looked a lot more cohesive going forwards, I thought, with Sargent through the middle. And Sargent's got that dynamism, that bit of pace, that strength, that aerial ability, where you do just go, oh, I'd love to see him through the middle once again. Yeah,
agreed. I actually think Norwich have looked better when it's been one or the other. I don't think when they've played 2, I don't think that's maybe worked. It's probably worked better against the 3, but even then, I think teams have worked it out a little bit more recently. I agree. I think what maybe people don't see is the space he creates for other people. We spoke about Ramsey. I think you look at Sargent's drive for the goal at the weekend. It's a Pukki run that creates the space for him to go into. There's a lot of work there and a lot of stuff off the ball that is really beneficial to Norwich that you wouldn't necessarily see. So even when he's not scoring goals, and I sit in press conferences of opposing managers sort of every week. Teemu Pukki's the one. The sharpness in the area, the one that causes the headaches, that causes the issues, that sort of parts the defence for players to run through. He's the one that they look to stop.
Oh, Connor's influenced me to come back on the Teemu Pukki bandwagon again. I say it out of love because I know where he can be. And I know that he's not there because of the systems that we've played, and I do think it's reflective of that. I'm not criticising Teemu. I just think if you're going to play a system that doesn't benefit him, then just play Josh.
We talk about influence. We've forgotten to say that Josh Sargent's celebration has now gone to Aaron Ramsey because he went with the old...
that was class, wasn't it?
Both of them went with it.
Went for the Sargent salute.
Connor Warnes, question. Where do we stand with our midfield, gents? So it's the department that gets the most stick, but they've now scored our last 5 goals.
Fair comment, by the way.
I mean, not facts don't care about feelings.
Yeah, old Connor in with a big one. Love that.
I'd agree. It still feels to me, Connor, that the midfield is the defence have made mistakes, but it feels like there's a fairly solid base there. I'm still not sure, and I don't think Dean Smith's quite sure, what our strongest midfield looks like. I'm not sure if it's Liam Gibbs in there. I'm not sure if Kenny's in there. I'm not sure if you're playing Nunez. Do you know what it is? Or
not really.
No.
I think all I would say is I think Saturday's probably the closest that I felt to going. Yep, okay, I can see that.
So that was Hayden.
Yeah, Hayden, McLean, Sarah, and also it was. We spoke about Dean Smith earlier. It was relevant to the game because you looked at what Rotherham are. They were going to impose physicality and be intense. So you pick players who can stand up to that and impose themselves on that. And Hayden is a presence. Kenny McLean is energetic, and Sarah much the same, will run all day. So I think that blend worked for the occasion, but it doesn't necessarily mean when Norwich are playing against a team who are going to play a low block at home and they need to break them down that's going to be the right one. So this is again where we probably go back to a coach that needs to find a solution to different things. But I think actually that's probably going to be the area that we see the most chop and change in, and probably why the shape has changed so much, because as you said, they've got different players than maybe they would need for different occasions.
Absolutely. I love Hayden, but he does make me nervous, Chris.
No.
Again, you've not listened to me. He makes me nervous because his knee is strapped and every time he goes down, he looks completely broken.
Hayden, no, it's because. Do you know why? It's because he's doing the job of 3 midfielders at once.
Aren't you always scared that he's injured when he goes down?
He is a colossus. He is a man mountain. He is a brick shit house. And by the way, he's got the fight and the passion and the belief and the leadership that midfielders lack.
I haven't doubted any of that. I just said he always looks like he's going to be injured when he goes down.
Yeah, well, mate, start believing in him again. All right, Isaac Hayden. What a difference he's made, Connor.
He has.
Phenomenal.
He's going to be a manager. I spoke to him after Watford, and you just get that feeling when you hear a player speak. He's going to be a manager, and I think a pretty good one.
Well, there you go. Maybe that is the answer. Dean Smith out. We've got the replacement there.
I heard from someone somewhere. I might be getting them in trouble by saying this. Someone has told me this.
Connor's probably said it on a
probably Connor. It's Connor again, isn't it? That when Isaac was out injured, he was in the director's box and he was actually writing notes.
Yeah, that was Dean Smith said that at the press
Dean
conference.
Smith said that. Okay, that wasn't you. Fine.
So yeah, I think he has brought a leadership and actually spoke to Grant Hanley after Sheffield United, I think it was, and he made reference to him just being a man. And actually, when you look at Norwich's team, it is very young, particularly going forward. You look at that front line behind Buki, even with Sargent in it, it's very young. So you've kind of got experience in there. I think his inclusion on Saturday allowed the fullbacks to go on in a way that they haven't been allowed to go on. So he's made a big difference. I think he's probably become the player we all expected he would, right, in terms of importance.
We didn't want to say it though, did we? We all went, we can't gamble on him too much. Do you know what I loved? Do you know what? Absolutely, you know what I'm going to say, don't you?
His thuggish behaviour.
Did you see him go up to the Rotherham fans?
I saw it in real time, actually. Yes.
God, that got me going.
It's good, wasn't it?
That really got me going. That is what you want to see. And by the way, old Maxie got involved in that as well, didn't he?
He did.
I wanted more though. I wanted the cupping of ears. I wanted.
Well, no, he
blowing
did.
Kisses.
Did he not give it some specs or a cup? He did. He gave it one of the two.
I think it was that.
It was an ear. It was an ear. Good.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Jack Wright with a great question. Can Aaron Ramsey go on to have a better career than Aaron Ramsey?
Good luck, Connor.
Or maybe his brother, because his brother's doing
which
quite
one?
well
Which
as well.
Aaron Ramsey are we indicating here?
Aaron Ramsey, the Arsenal player.
No to the Welsh international. I don't think so.
What about Jacob? Can he be better than Jacob?
Just say yes, for God's sake.
Yes, for God's sake.
Good. Reese, question. Chris, would you rather fight 10 Nunez-sized Grant Hanleys or 20 Grant Hanley-sized Nunez's?
Hang on, right.
So,
just go one more, please. Hang on.
Would you rather fight 10 Nunez-sized Grant Hanleys
No.
or 20 Grant Hanley-sized Nunez's?
20 Grant Hanley-sized Nunez's. You do not want to be fighting Grant Hanley in any way, shape or form.
So even if he's a foot smaller, you'll
I
fight
feel like you could negotiate with that many Nunez's.
Negotiate?
Yeah. I feel like with
talking
with
Grant,
as always.
He's far too happy to do anything.
Yeah, exactly. With Grant Hanley, you're in trouble, aren't you? Do you agree, Connor?
Oh yeah, 100%.
And we did get to the bottom of why he's now called Nacho, thanks to a kind viewer. It's a shortening of his middle name that I can't remember. But we were like, why is Dean Smith suddenly calling Nunez Nacho?
I'm still not there on it, but it's fine.
From I think he was asked about it in a press conference, and he basically said, he came up to me one day and said, "Call me Chili Nacho."
Oh wow!
And that's
really?
That's it. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Chili Nacho.
Yeah.
He does bring that spice to the midfield mix, doesn't he?
HD he says his fun fact. I'm not finding it very fun. Says Aaron Ramsey and Jacob Ramsey both scored for their respective clubs.
That's fun.
Is it?
Can you lighten up a bit,
Yeah,
please?
I mean, we kind of knew that, but thanks anyway.
There's a couple of nice words in there for Connor. Read those out. Come on. I have read through them.
Hang on.
There's a couple of nice comments there. For once, yeah.
It's from my family.
Oh, hello, Grandma!
Hang on. Hayden? Hey, Izo. Which Norwich player, past or present, would you want to coach you at football?
Ooh, past or present.
So we're assuming we're playing at the level we played at, so very average Sunday league. So which player would you... Sorry, maybe you were slightly higher than very average. Maybe you were like average Sunday league. Who would you like to coach you?
David Fox.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I was
David Fox.
I was a midfield. I didn't really like mud anywhere on me, but I liked picking a pass.
Okay.
So David Fox.
I feel like I'd like a bit of his passing knowledge.
Yeah, Chris? You'd probably like somebody who's a passion. You always use that word, passion.
Do you know who I've really, really enjoyed speaking to recently, more than ever before? Hux. I just love how straight-laced he is. He doesn't fuck about.
I think he'd make me
says
cry.
It how it is. Yeah, but good. You need that every now and then. Right? But what I like about Hux is that he's streetwise, yet had the talent as well. Quite often, players have to become streetwise or shithouses because they're just not very good at football. Hux was like the ultimate mix of talent, hard work, played at an elite level, and just has the ability to wind up opposition fans, to draw a challenge, to get the crowd up.
I remember being younger and putting my hair into the way that he did.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Did you have the blonde highlights as well?
No, I didn't have the blonde highlights.
Was he the closest to David Beckham we've had in terms of influencing Norfolk?
Let's not give him too many compliments, because I know he watches this, because that's how the conversation started last week.
Absolutely. Matt says, keeping it realistic, this is, we'll get Connor's thoughts on this. Who's the one player you'd like to see Norwich sign in January? Ooh. Now, I guess the question here is, will we sign anyone?
And we wouldn't have a clue, so you need an answer.
And Matt says, I'd go for Worrell. He's hardly played for Forest this season. Even a loan move would help us.
Yeah.
Cameron Jerome, Carlton Morris, bring him home.
Elias Chair, I like him a lot.
He's good.
He's a good player.
A lot smaller than I thought.
Right, thank you.
Who's the one on Campwell when he went through? But
right, okay, yeah.
I think if you want an injection of creativity, he'd be quite good. But he is quite small, so there is that.
Well, but will we? Do you think we will sign anyone? Because we keep hearing about the finances being in a fairly perilous position. And
not unless they sell quite a bit. So no.
Do you think we'll sell?
Not really.
Okay.
I think it'll be quiet.
Pritchard. Mate, we need a winger. Bring him
He's
home.
not a winger.
He knows the grass wasn't greener. He's got a job to do still.
He's another man who's got a bit of anger about him because he scored the other week and
cupped
his.
I
He went like this, didn't
that cello to the Huddersfield faithful was glorious, wasn't it?
Hayden says Johnny Rowe, give it a go, will go on and become a starter when he's fit. He'll cause absolute havoc in this league.
Johnny Rowe, let's have a go.
I don't want to sort of piss on Hayden's fire here, but.
You're a real misery.
I am a bit tonight. It kind of feels the same with Liam Gibbs. Like,
Are
they the answer? I don't know if they are. I think because the level's been low this season, we've just been trying to find things to give us excitement. Is Jonathan Rowe better than anyone in our starting lineup at the moment? No.
But Johnny Rowe, let's have a go. He's a wild card. He can add that.
Is that what we need? A wild card?
Well, to break down Championship defences, let's hear from the intelligent expert.
I like Johnny Rowe,
but
good answer.
I think so. The danger or the question I have is I'm always quite sceptical when a young player comes into a team that's getting relegated in the Premier League and looks quite good for running around a lot. I think that's.
Jamal Loza type too.
But I think to be fair, I've spoken, and I won't name him, but I've spoken to someone who coached him in the academy for quite a few years and said that basically every age group he was at was the best and kind of most talented. And I think his journey to the top is quite a nice story if he ever gets to tell it at any point. So hopefully he does.
Look, I'm coming at this from love, and I want to see Jonathan Rowe progress. And I'm not
sure. You've taken that line from someone.
Not sure that it is his progression will be coming off.
I can feel the scepticism. I can even feel the scepticism from the man on my left.
He will be a brilliant player. I wonder if he needs a loan first.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you know? Every time, I felt this with Maddison is a prime example. Everyone says he benefited from that loan in Scotland. Get him in the Norwich team. Seriously, I think I like the look of Adam Eder. I like the look of Johnny Rowe. Let's have a go. I do think you need a wild card to break down opposition defences. Maybe I'm a bit of a basic football fan. I don't know. I think a loan is too easy.
Possibly.
Imagine if he played in a side that had a bit of confidence, that had a defence that wasn't getting battered every week in the Premier League. And it's very cheap of you, particularly, to say... Welcome to the podcast. To say, he got compliments because he ran in the Premier League when everyone else does. No, fuck off.
Yeah, but
no, that's not right.
Did he score? Did he?
That's not right.
Did he register an assist? Because you're the man.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Who was it against?
Can't remember, but he did. And Connor will prove me right in a minute. He can't remember either, can he?
No, I can't remember.
Johnny Rowe, let's have a go. Don't write him off. He'll be a player.
I'm not writing.
He's got a chance for sure.
Yeah.
Got a chance.
Norwich Noise tweets us, who I think might be Connor's mum, and says, Connor is a class act and clearly very talented. It's been a pleasure seeing him get to where he is so quickly and develop into such a fine writer.
That's definitely, my mum wouldn't be that nice.
Okay.
But
P.S.
thank
put
you
the
very
wash
much.
on.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
That's fair.
Thank you.
Harv, who I believe often calls me nasty things on Twitter, but I will answer his question.
Yeah, go on.
Says, why does no one ever talk about the ownership of the football club? Well, I must say, it feels like it's the thing that we've been talking about the most in the last couple of months, particularly with Marco Taniazo and his kind of people coming into the football club. Connor, where are we at with Norwich City ownership? I know we've got the AGM fast approaching as well, so I'm sure it will be talked about more then. Give me a 5-year plan. How do you see Norwich sitting in 5 years, maybe?
Good question. I've always posed the question, so I'll phrase it like that I'm not really sure why an American with a lot of money would be happy to kind of sit in the background. And I think you look at his career over the whole and what he's done with the Milwaukee Brewers. Not that I have a clue about baseball, apart from it's quite close to Rounders, isn't it? I don't know.
Pretty much.
Rounders is class.
I've just offended loads of your audience on that. But he's quite a long-term thinker, and actually I think it's quite smart, because if there is a view to that, which I don't think is a particularly controversial thing to say, there is a view to that. Who better to learn off than two people who have been in the game for nearly 30 years and know what it's like to run a football club. So it's the way I've viewed it is he's almost in the passenger seat, and at some point there'll be an opportunity for him to drive the car, I think.
And
Delia
and Michael will
love the car.
We love the car.
Delia and Michael will understand where they are in this situation as well, won't they? They'll know that there will come a point when they will need to hang up their boots, so to say.
Yeah, of course, and I think that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't love the football club any less. You know, I think actually, what's the saying? If you love something, let it go, whatever. Yeah, many people will maybe see it in that way, but
you're a bit of a romancer.
No comment. So look, I think. And let's, there's an elephant in the room around their age as well. Like that's something that you have to take into account.
I think I'll probably be dead at their age. I mean, if they're
like,
doing remarkably well
at the rate of Lakens that you're consuming.
But if I'm 80, I want to sit home in my slippers
Absolutely.
and watch some nice daytime TV.
Me
rather
too.
than
Meanwhile, they're going to every single game.
But, absolutely, hats off to them.
But this is the thing, right? So half. Like, again, going back to Connor's point earlier about, like, I'm not surprised that people are getting irate about, Dean Smith, about the board, about Stuart Webber, because we're not hearing from them or what are we trying to do, or what is the plan. And look, people inside the club might think, oh, Chris, you're being ungrateful, you're spoiled for what we've supplied the media or the fans with over the last few seasons. But again, like, I know that Delia and Michael Wynne-Jones, they literally bleed yellow and green. They love the club, and I know that there'll be people watching this, listening to this around the world. Where, but they're holding us back, and like they're not. They're just waiting for the right opportunity. I think with the Atane-Arsos, I genuinely believe that the right opportunity, the perfect situation, has arisen. And I think that we're about to go through the door.
Right, I want this quick fire question from Ben. Rank Cantwell, Ramsey, Sargent, Sinani, Dal, Hernandez and Rowe from best to worst in terms of them as a winger playing for Norwich City.
You're going to have to write those names down for me.
Cantwell, is he near the top or the bottom? As a winger, Ben.
Hang on, winger. Hang on.
Because that's where he has been playing.
Can we just change the question to who's the best winger?
Yeah, that's literally what I just asked.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, who's the best out of all of those? Okay, give me the best and worst.
Right, so go through them again.
Cantwell.
Yeah.
Ramsey.
Yeah.
Sargent. Sinani. Dowell. Hernandez. Jonathan Rowe, give it a go.
In terms of pure wing, because a lot of those players aren't wingers.
But they have been playing there.
Yeah. But in terms of pure winger, I think Hernandez probably.
Yes, Connor! Yes, Connor! I'm so pleased you said that. Finally, someone with some football knowledge on the podcast.
But in terms of in the system, who's the best?
No,
is it the same?
Change it.
Is it the same answer? That's literally what he's asking. Playing as a winger for Norwich City.
Yeah, but I don't know how many consistent performances I've seen in and that includes Hernandez, by the way, in those positions.
Should have scored the winner against QPR.
To
He
be
should
fair,
have
though,
done. He should have done. I agree with that. I agree with
his
that.
numbers
Love you,
behind, if you want to get really geeky about it, the numbers behind creating shooting actions are among the highest in the Championship.
Yeah,
so
they
that's,
are.
that's
Shot
good.
creating
They
actions.
They are, aren't they?
You still
Connor?
can't explain
They
to me
are,
what
aren't they,
shot
Connor?
creating action
I
is.
don't need to, because it backs up my point that Hernandez is given way too much grief for what he gives this team.
Who's the worst?
But what I do need to say, in balance, is he missed a hell of an opportunity. A hell of an opportunity. But to be fair, there were two others in that game as well. I also felt that Toddy should have pulled the trigger with his left in the first half as well. Your beloved Teemu Pukki that can do no wrong missed an absolute sitter. So yeah, it's not just about an L.
Who's the worst?
Who's the worst winger?
I'll tell you. I'll change the question. Who's made me most frustrated is Daniel Sinani, because I thought at the start of the season, I thought, cool, we've got a player on
a
our
wild
hands here.
card.
And now I've gone. Actually, he's shown me absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's been pretty telling, hasn't it, that he's not been in the squad the last few weeks.
Yeah.
And I had put that to Dean on Friday, maybe midweek, about why he wasn't, and just said it was a selection decision.
Right. So
yeah, I think
even.
that probably answers the question, doesn't it? Sadly.
Final question.
There's loads of questions.
Yeah, I
Come
know,
on.
but there's so many. We're not going to get them all in. So one final question. I'm going to go with.
Go on.
Fill some time.
You never get any quicker.
Finn Bassett.
Because
we haven't discussed either of these two.
By the way,
players.
that's the name of the week. Finn
Statement.
Bassett. That's a solid name. What do you reckon Finn does for a living?
Accountancy
Finn Bassett. Yeah, I reckon so.
or sweet seller.
Very
Statement.
good.
No idea how it took us this long to realise that Angus Gunn is a far better goalkeeper than Tim Krul.
Oh dear.
Tim Krul is too mistake prone, but with Gunn, I feel safe. Well, I'm glad you feel safe, Finn.
You answer that. What's your opinion on the Angus Gunn Tim Krul debate?
I think they're two goalkeepers that are very, very similar in quality. I think Angus Gunn's really taken his opportunity.
I agree.
I was surprised actually that Dean Smith made the decision that he made. I think there's an argument to say it was quite a harsh decision actually when you delve into various numbers, but I understand why he made it. And
hang on, quick pause. Sorry.
Go on.
What does various numbers mean?
Well, I think you look at kind of his shot-stopping numbers and his general goalkeeping numbers. He wasn't ranking too badly in terms of comparatively to other Championship goalkeepers, but there were a couple of mistakes and they get highlighted, I think, even more so. And it's a bold call. I'm praising Dean Smith ultimately because it's a big call to make. I think it was probably at the time that he made it the right call, but I didn't think he was going to make it. And Angus Gunn has taken that opportunity. I think he's been excellent. And what I like about him is he's a very intelligent goalkeeper in that he positionally reads the game really well. He gets him like the Ollie McBurney save at Sheffield United. That's come from him positioning himself really well, because I think there are other goalkeepers who don't get in the position that he gets in. So I've been really impressed.
What people maybe don't think about enough with Angus is that he was literally trying to save shots from Sergio Aguero in training and was under Joey Hart, right? And you know, being in that Man City team in that era before he then went out again, you know, that's going to do the world of good. I remember him saying, you know, like him saying to me, "Oh yeah, I'm trying to save shots from Sergio Aguero," and I'm like, "Fucking hell, where did I go wrong?" It's phenomenal. Like, I'm buzzing for Angus, but look, he's proving a point. Lots of people give him the cheap, easy, lazy label of, oh, he's a Norwich boy, so you know no one can ever say, you know, when he makes a mistake, we'll say it. But at the moment, it's working well. And I do feel for Timmy Krul because again, just like Teemu Pukki, he's a club legend, and I do think it was brave of Dean Smith
I think
to
you
drop
look
him.
at Tim and he'd probably get in 22 other Championship teams as their number one. I think we're very lucky to have two clearly very.
I think you're getting some Premier League sides.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good problem to have, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Two keepers. Normally, when a manager comes out with that, when they say, "Oh, you know, the quality of the competitions," you think, oh. But with Angus and Tim, you can genuinely feel that they're both pushing each other on. Which is very
I
exciting.
suspect that Angus probably internally did feel pressure not only to keep Tim Krul out the side, but for his own personal development, because he's not. I don't think he's classed as young anymore, is he? And he's had a lot of time at clubs maybe where he hasn't kicked on as much as he would have wanted to, and now he's got his opportunity and he's firmly grabbed it.
I've seen a real change actually from probably the first game he played for Norwich, where I didn't think his confidence, and understandably so given what he went through at Southampton, but the goalkeeper I see now is completely different, I think, to the one that walked through the door, and that's really positive actually. And yeah, it's there now because he can have that shirt for as long as he wants it, providing he keeps performing.
The only time, and he said, we said this to him when he sat on this very seat. I said the only time I've ever felt nervous when Angus was in goal was against Ipswich at home. I think it was the 1-1 where Tim Close scored, and he said, "Oh, I was a bit nervous for that one." Or was it I think it might have been the one at Portman Road. Either or. Apart from that, looks assured, coming out for stuff, more vocal than ever before. Great shot stopping. Saving shots at his near post. Just I can't praise him enough.
There we go. We finished on a positive, just as we want to. Connor, pleasure as always, my friend. Keep up the good work.
Thank you guys.
Thanks very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye.